Hey, I can't seem to relax. I did find a Stephen Fry piece about, it was like an hour and 40 something minutes of Stephen Fry and various other characters talking about language. They just talked about puns for the most part. And it just made my brain purr. But I can't seem to calm down and settle in and just relax and be, which is my usual state. So I don't know what to do with my hands. And I kind of think about how this felt when I was little, and without having an example of this kind of sensation, I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. I didn't even know that it was a need. If you don't know that that's an experience, that it's really funny the way our experience is so shaped by our sensory capacities, and yet we question those. We question our own findings or things like that. I look at my past, and I'm cognizant of the fact that my needs have always been met. I've never gone hungry. I've never gone without. And yet there's this constant lack mentality, or this fear, this insecurity that just is everywhere with me, and it's on like every level. And I just think of, like, why is that? And if I'm putting myself in like a kid's position, and I click on the computer, and I want to have a talk with my therapist, and I say, look, I feel like something's not right. I can't seem to settle in and find a sense of ease and peace within myself. I think there's a need that is asking to be addressed, and I don't know what that is. Can we talk about this? So I'm kind of getting my therapist hat on, and I'm sitting with myself, and I'm thinking, like, okay, so this sense of like insecurity, this sense of frenzied, something's not right, I can't relax. Where does your brain go when you kind of, hold her still and look her in the eyes and say, what do you need? And if she growls, ask her later, remind her to use her words. And that's what I've been doing all day. It's now almost 9:00, and I think I've been thinking about it enough that I can verbalize it, and I wanted to kind of get this documented. The sense that I'm feeling, this frenzied insecurity that I can't seem to settle in. I touched on it being like that creator mode before, but that's not all that I'm feeling. And I think that's why it's so uncomfortable that it is feeling like so off, is that this creator mode isn't able to really feel really good, because there's this other thing. So like, what's this other thing? What's this other need? And what it is it's more of that narcissistic lack mentality. It's more of that, like, you can shower somebody with beautiful modeling and inspiration and insight. You can reframe things perfectly for somebody, and lay out a beautiful plan of how they can change and fix their life. But if they're not ready to receive it, they're not ready, they're not there, and that's okay. And I'm finally at a point in my life where I can say, despite everything inside of me just screaming out and saying, you selfish, ungrateful bitch, there is this sense of lack. And I need to do the work of, like, because that's incongruous. It does not match with reality. So, like, where's this lack? Where's this insecurity coming from? And when we look at that hierarchy that I've been talking about, and I just sit down and I do the work, And I ask myself, where am I at on level 1? Where am I at with my physiological needs being met? Am I doing a good job of that? I have a beautiful environment to live in. I get to look out my windows and see trees and foliage and like every shade of green you could imagine. I live in goddamn paradise. It's a clean, new, warm, like, good place to live. And yet, I can't check that box because there's not longevity associated with this. And I'm not trying to talk shit about the owner of the property. I'm just saying, like, even the people that bought space probably quite a lot of money, like $100,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars to live in a condo in Florida, and they thought that they had longevity because they pay their bills and they can afford to live there, and they thought that they were safe and they felt security in that. And do you know how many people died recently in Florida in a condo collapse? And anytime, unless you own your home and you know for damn certain that there's no way any kind of government or foreign government can come and take that away from you, like, that's as close as you can get to real security in your home environment. I don't pay a lot of rent. Definitely not enough to make it worth it for the people that I rent from. It's a kindness that they're doing to give me a place to live. So at any time, and I'm not saying they're not trustworthy people and that they would do something yucky, but there's just that awareness that, you know, something could happen to the owners of the property, and then, you know, what happens when they don't own the property anymore and the person who does wants more money and I just don't have it. I can't live here. Or, you know, if somebody's doing something for you out of the kindness of their heart, when that shifts, when the kindness of their heart shifts, it's your fault that you didn't provide for yourself. You didn't meet that need. And I don't want to be in that position again. But it's this kind of like unsolvable puzzle as far as I honestly do not see a scenario where I am an owner of property. And I grew up in a society that says, you know, if you're a grown-ass woman and you still have a minimum wage job, it's because you fucked up. Like, that's your problem, you're failing. And I get that. Like, you have to work hard. There's a lot of competition in the world. And there's a rhetoric that makes a lot of sense to a lot of people that says competition fosters innovation. Competition creates this environment where only kind of the strong survive and the right people earn the position because they have what it takes to do the position. And I mean, all of those ideas are great in theory, but when we actually look at the workplace, they don't hold up. The people who get the jobs are the people who are in with the hiring the people that make that choice. It's, I can rattle off so many real scenarios of people interviewing beautifully, and being fully qualified, and they didn't get the job because the person that got the job already got the job. And in my case, I've been given a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunities that I should not have been given because I follow the instruction that you're given when you're young, how to interview. You know, you act and you sell yourself and you fake it till you make it because you compete for the opportunity to be exploited. You drool, you salivate, like, just give me an opportunity to prove myself, you know. I will work hard. I will be a good person. And they've given me the job. And, you know, I interviewed really well for a facility, and And they actually threw that in my face later and said, but Alicia, you interviewed so well. And I held my tongue, and what I bit down on and didn't say was, well, yeah, I interviewed well because I interviewed for what I wanted the job to be. And now I'm in the position, and it is not a place of learning. It is not a place of support. It is not a place where human wellness and development and, developing skills and supporting yourself and self-actualization is attainable. That's what you said this place was. Of course I interviewed well. I sold myself for that meaning-making, purpose-filled job. But it's not what the job is. It's not. So, of course, the point I'm just trying to make is just that, competition does not foster innovation. True curiosity and true need are what foster innovation. It's not exploitation in competition. It will never be. People do best and people thrive when their needs are met. And if we live in a society where in order to meet those needs, we have to commodify our needs. Oh man. Do you see where that becomes so problematic? When you're commodifying healthcare, for example, I've worked in the substance abuse industry for a while, and I've seen personally where it overlaps overlaps into behavioral and mental health. So we have very complex physiological, biological shit when we're talking about those things, and so many cases we send people to a diagnostician to take, ask some questions and write some numbers down and tell, it's so much, what do they call it, a cost benefit analysis. How much does it cost to pay somebody to sit down with somebody for a half hour, 45 minutes, and then tell them that they're an addict and they are in need of these rehabilitation services, and then put that person in a facility where daily you're making money off of that person's presence there. You're making money off of all of the different services that you can tack on for them. So that it costs very little to pay somebody to tell some consumer that they need services. Whereas, and I've seen this so many times, people are sent to rehab for behavioral issues that they then find out later were caused by a traumatic brain injury. But it's so much more expensive to pay for an MRI. Do you see what I'm saying? When we commodify care, you don't get care. And the people that really need the care can't get it because they can't pay for it because they are sick. And the Social Security system is broken that way. Because people are so bound and so tied to this idea that in order to be a good moral person, you have to be hardworking. And what that means is a very specific box. You have to be consistent with your work. You have to produce. If we're existing because we make money, and if we don't make money, we're on the street, and we're not going to live long that way. So if we're making money because we have to, I'm receiving services from somebody who's doing a job because they have to. And even if you're a trust fund kid or whatever, you're doing it because the industry is competitive. And if you don't show up every day, and if you don't make strides every day, and if you don't outperform your peers every day, you're not getting ahead. You're not making any leeway. You're not, and that seems to be what we associate meaning making with, or success, or, doing well for ourselves, is money. The capacity to make money, the interest in saving and acquiring and divvying out money. And the not okay feeling I feel, the insecure feeling I feel, even though my needs have always been met. I've always been a spoiled little brat. It's not a real known security to me, because I know deep down, and I've known this since I was a child. If you know me, if you've asked me, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think it was a marine biologist for a long time, because I love dolphins. But not long after that, it just became, I want to be a mom. Because I knew I did not have a function. You can milk me all you want, honey. I don't produce. And I've known that. I've known that since I was a child. I don't have a skill that you can exploit regularly in exchange for payment. I don't have anything that is consistent that I can offer to you. I don't, my needs have always been met out of the kindness of other people. And I'm not saying, I'm powerless and I'm this, like, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that my power, my value, who I am, is not defined by what I produce, what service I can offer, how I can compete to be exploited and exploit others at the same time in order to feed myself. I don't, a lot of people don't. I don't think people want to look at that. We talk about things like autism finally now, thank you. And people are willing at least to say as much as these people's brains function differently. That's like the one thing that you can get out of somebody for sure, that like everybody who studies autism can agree on. The brain is different. There is such thing as being different brained. That is a thing that we're accepting now, just like it's only been about 40 years that we've accepted that domestic violence is a thing, that marital rape is still rape. It's been relatively recent that these things have come about. So it's not like super surprising that the rhetoric hasn't been challenged surrounding meeting needs, and the value of a human being, and and the experience of emotional development being very unique, and being very tied to and affected by our sensory experiences as human beings. And that's very personal, and that's not quantifiable. It's not. So like, when did it become such a dirty, rotten, horrible thing to be different, or to like have a different brain, or to be a minority? It's beautiful that I can ask that question, because the truth has always been like the opposite of that, of like, of course being a minority is bad. We read that quote from The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, where it's like, society being what it is, and I'm just trying to be a good person. The best hope that a Black person could have in that story, or on that page that I read, the best hope that they could have of a life for themselves and their kin, was to just not be Black at all. That their Blackness was what justified that person not having the freedom or the worth, the value that somebody else would have just because they're a different color. It's going to take a really long time for people to recognize that being different brained, or being a minority in any sense, like, it's not dirty. Someday we're going to develop the emotional IQ to recognize that, and to say, if we're making it impossible for people to live a subsistence lifestyle, I cannot afford land. If a society is propped up on making sure that these things are not attainable unless you jump through a lot of hoops and support a lot of other things simultaneously. Like, then that society also needs to focus a little bit more on how people are able to meet their own needs, because I don't, contrary to what a lot of you might think when you watch me speak, I don't want to live off of a handout from the government. I don't want to be a pet. I don't want to have things handed to me. I want to have a place in this world. I want to maybe not have a function, but I want to belong. I want to contribute in some way when I can, how I can. The lack mentality, the insecurity that I feel in spite of how wonderful my life is, comes from a deep knowing that I don't have what it takes to be successful in this life. I would love to go to Tacoma or Seattle and pick up trade skills and become a plumber or an electrician or a carpenter. That would be amazing. I would love to go to Portland for 11 months and get a phlebotomist certificate. But I have, a car payment. I have car insurance that I have to pay alongside that. It would probably cost less in the city because you're a little bit closer to an actual free market where you can choose, what to purchase as far as phone service is concerned. But where I live now, like, if you want a phone that works, you have to, your balls are in a jar and you have to pay for this one company that charges $140 for one line. So, I mean, there would be some savings some places, but I know for a fact that, like last year when I tried to find a place to live in the Lacey area in the suburbs of Seattle, which is where these trades programs are, they do not have them where I live. They don't have them anywhere near where I live. They don't have them anywhere that I can justify commuting to my training. And to live in Lacey, which is it's a cheaper kind of suburb of a bigger city. I think the cheapest apartment that I could find was $1,100, and that didn't include utilities. And I would have to make, God, I guess it would have to be like $2,500 a month or something like that take home, because I've consider the utilities on top of that $1,100, so you're looking at $1,300, $1,400, $1,500, the $400 with the car payment and the insurance, another we'll say $50, $100 for the phone bill, and then what the fuel, the food costs are. And I need you to understand that a lot of these people are very proud of themselves for eating ramen for 10 years straight, and saving their pennies and getting that skill, getting that trade, and making their way for themselves. And they should be proud. That's wonderful. What an accomplishment. How many lessons did you pick up and how many opportunities did you get exposed to? That's wonderful. I love it. But like, the thing that I want to ask of these people is, when they're sort of projecting that out onto other people and saying, if you're still at a minimum wage job, it's your own fault, you're failing. What I just want to ask is, like, when you went out and you were getting that training and you were eating only ramen noodles for 10 years, like, did you already own your home? Were you renting from somebody who gave you a screaming deal? Did you know somebody who knew somebody? You need to take these things into consideration. These are privileges that are, they're yours, and they're not necessarily somebody else's. I would need a good at least $5,000 just to relocate, and living paycheck to paycheck, you can't do that. And so you say, well, stop living paycheck to paycheck. That's completely within your own free doing. And my response to that is bullshit. No, you can't. in 10 years I might save $500. But people live paycheck to paycheck because there's so little trickling in. Yeah, if they eat only ramen noodles for 10 years, maybe they can save, but it's still going to take 10 years to save $500. And as soon as you save that, God knows that car's going to break, and you're going to have to put that $500 down on the opportunity to continue to make payments for the next, 5 years. It's people have these assertions, or like these so I that's the need. That's sort of the I don't feel okay. That's what it is. That's this insecurity. Is deep down I know I don't produce anything that's like worth exploiting. And I don't have resources. I don't have what it takes to get a job that could be exploited. The jobs that I have access to are jobs that will probably put me in proximity with people or situations where I will end up hurting somebody and going to jail, or the times when I was doing my best, I like had the same job for 3 or 4 years straight. They were really kind, though. The thing is that during those 4 years, I was forced to take vacation at least once a year, and it wasn't because I was good. Forced vacation is not good. I drank more during those years than I ever have in my entire life. Yeah, I had a Costco card, but I ended up in rehab. So I can fake it. I can fake the 40-hour a week, 9 to whatever. It was swing shift. It wasn't 9 to 5, but like the 40-hour a week regular schedule, produce, like show up, be there, perform. And these retail workers and these service industry people are some of the absolute best performance arts masters, and they don't get any credit for it. But let me tell you, do not forget this ever. The only reason people can do those jobs is because they can put on a role, and they can, they can read that emotional cue. They have that emotional intelligence. They know, they're going to be what you need them to be, so that you get shit, you leave and leave them alone so that they can get on with the next person. Like, it's just, and I don't have the aptitude for that. I will end up blowing up and hurting somebody, or I will implode and I will try to kill myself again. So, like, come on, guys. What do you want from me? Like, yes, I live in fucking paradise. Yes, my needs have always been met from the outside. I have never had a job that I felt secure with. The competition or my lack of aptitude for the position, it wasn't sustainable. I always knew no matter what job I had, it wasn't going to last. So there's no security in that. Anytime I've lived somewhere, it's been on the whim of somebody else, or I've rented, and that could be pulled out from underneath you at any time. So I've never had security associated with finance. I've never had security associated with living situation as an adult. And then when we go back further into childhood, you kind of look at those early memories being a very exasperated, frustrated caregiver who's very worried and concerned about you not being okay, not being normal. So I definitely can cop to a low emotional intelligence quotient, because I can admit, I can see that I have copped out of any kind of like real curiosity about the outside experience or like other people. And a lot of that has just been that, like, I'm not like you, I'm not normal, I'm not cool. And like, my parents never meant to instill that kind of rhetoric in my head. But like I've said 1,000 times, like, there's no saying what wacko off the wall piece of material is going to bounce off and stick. Whatever reason it is, I have really, really developed this ego that just wraps and wraps and wraps around me. And I am a very emotive, empathetic person. I'm very codependent. I can very much read cues to kind of set myself up for like, okay, turn off your emotions because you're going to be triggered by this, you know, feel what they're feeling or project what you think they want you to feel. Like, that's all very codependent. I've got that. But like I'm coming to terms with the fact that it's not safe. Like, I have it in my mind that it's not safe to feel empathy. It's not safe to be intimate, so intimate with another person that you become real curious about what their normative, values are as far as like what this emotional intelligence means. And it takes a lot of bravery to get intimate with somebody and get up close and sit next to them and sit there with them when they're feeling the ugliest things. It's not easy. And I've wrapped myself up so tight in this ego as a protection because I've been aware that I'm not the same. I've been aware that minorities are not safe. And I've been aware for as long as I can remember that like I will be a failure, like I already am. The association that I hold with money and creating wealth for yourself is that it makes people really stressed out and mean and angry, because that was my first experience with the awareness of money, is that it's very stressful. And people hurt your parents hurt their bodies. They put themselves through things that they don't want to do in order to make this money so that you can have things. And that never felt good. I didn't want my Papa Bear to hurt his back every day. So much so that Mom had to say, he loves you. He loves you. He's just hurting. I didn't want that for him. I never asked for that. But in our society, we're exalted for that, and we throw it in our children's faces, and it ends up, instead of like doing what we want it to do, and helping them to appreciate a good work ethic, instead of that, for whatever reason, I turned it into like, money is disgusting. I hate it. Take it, keep it away from me. And anytime I get money, I'm really amazing at budgeting. Because I can make $100 buy a lot of shit. Like, I'm very good at stretching $1 and getting creative about, how far this can go. But I really need to try to get better at just not having this focus on like, get it out of my hand, get it away from me, get this filthy, disgusting shit away from me. Like, it's not even that I spend it all on nice things for myself or things that I really need. It's literally, I made some crack at a store recently, and it's like, oh God, that's actually what I believe. The guy's like, hey, now don't give me all your money. And I said, well, I sure as hell can't be trusted with it. Why not? I'm struggling to see what I can do, what I can produce, or what I can contribute that's of any kind of value to this society. And I'm really coming up dry. Sure, I have lots of interests. There are so many things I want to know about and study and experience, but not for money, not if I have to pay for, I feel like, paying for like a spiritual retreat or a self-development thing, or like a tarot read, like I was talking about before, like when you exchange money for something like that, you kind of check it out the door, like you're done. When you commodify spiritual growth or things like that, it then becomes a commodification, and it becomes like a spiritual bypassing where I've paid this psychic, and they told me something that sounded about right, and so I'm done. I'm off the hook. I don't need to do any more processing or shadow work or looking into my bullshit. I'm done. I got my answer. Only cost $50. I don't want to go there with my interests. I want them to develop organically. I don't want it to be something that I have to pursue, because if I don't, I'm not going to have status in society, and I'm going to end up living in the bushes. And it's like, well, I can't say for honest to God certainty that that's less safe than living in a condo that's going to fall down on top of me, or less desirable. So there's that. Probably going to be chewing on that for a minute. 36 minutes. Freaking A. I just can't be. Okay, see you later.